Mm, so cool. Oh, private comrade, I did not see you there. I mean, I did, but it doesn't matter. So, while we are here, you want to hear something about this beautiful country we call Mother Russia? Here, let me tell you a story. Historically, non-violent protests have been used in order to evoke change or make a statement without the use, as the name implies, violent actions. Such was the case of Russia in 1905, after the industrialization process began, under the rule of Tsar Nicholas II. Many people contested his leadership due to his apathy towards the newly formed worker class. To what extent were non-violent movements effective in yielding change in the Tsarist national Russian government during the 20th century, as opposed to violent protests? Dun, dun, dun.
The world had just left the 18th century, and Russia, finally catching up, had entered the industrial era. However, the efforts of the government to quickly industrialize the country put a strain on the lives of citizens. Unregulated factory owners abused their employees, giving them miserable wages and terrible working conditions. The nation was also losing the Russo-Japanese War. The people were angry, the atmosphere was tense, and merely a small spark could make this power keg explode. And eventually, it did. Initially, people set out to make a statement through passive acts that would obtain the attention of the Tsar, but in return, the government would respond in a negative fashion, thus leading the people to retaliate and resort to violence.
The big event that pushed the people over the edge was the Bloody Sunday Massacre. It was an attack on the workers marching down St. Petersburg led by Father George Gapon. It was no surprise that the workers had rallied together to protest. Their living conditions were horrible. The march was merely a peaceful demonstration through the streets while children and women watched by. The following image is of a letter sent by Father George Gapon to the Tsar, including the requests of the workers and hundreds of thousands of their signatures, thus the nature of the protest. More specifically, the changes sought were to have a respectable wage, protection of labor, sensible work hours, and freedom to unionize. Its significance was that it showed the determination of the people, the legitimacy of the movement, and the grievances of the worker. Unfortunately, an unauthorized assault was led by an independent military unit in an attempt to assert the Tsar's authority. Women, children, and men of the working class, all slaughtered. Gapon survived the attack, but had to leave the country after this.
Following the tragic events of Bloody Sunday, the authorities sought to mask the amount of casualties in order to avoid persecution. Once word got out, a more violent movement broke out at the national level. This included violation of private property, and eventually the murder of an important political figure, the Tsar's uncle, Grand Duke Sergei. This showed the repercussions of the non-ethical actions from the part of the government, and the unity of the Russian people to stand against oppression. Around 400,000 people would come to protest nationwide, and not just for improved living conditions, but for more political rights, such as freedom of expression and the right to elect a leader. In October, Nicholas would come to appease the people by issuing a manifesto that would change Russian politics, sending troops into Moscow to stop the protesting and restore the order within the nation. Although the revolts eventually died down, this was the first time that Russia's monarchy had to concede to the demands of their people, which would set the foundation for all future events like the October Revolution. News of the tragic events also reached the international level, as evidenced in the following image of the Evening News from Detroit, Michigan. Published in January 24th of 1905, it narrated the plight of the Russian workers in the March of the Winter Palace. The purpose of this paper was to raise awareness of the immoral acts of violence from the Russian government. The paper also opens with a bold headline that portrays the events in a negative fashion, thus showing the realities of the Tsar's regime to a Western audience. Additionally, the text includes images of an official shooting down 3 women as they stand helpless and unarmed, further presenting evidence in favor of the innocent protesters.
In retrospective, the Bloody Sunday Massacre and the following revolts could be categorized into 2 different stages of the Russian Revolution: the non-violent and the violent protest. Bloody Sunday started as a peaceful protest in front of the Winter Palace until the people were shot down. The government did not respond to the workers' plight until they became violent. On the other hand, were these changes even correlated? After all, Russia was in a war and could not afford to just restructure the country's economy overnight. These events in history reflect the present in how different civil groups argue is the most effective way to bring change in their countries. Thanks for watching, dear viewer. Remember to hit that like button and subscribe button right down below.